Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live iThemes webinar. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host here at iThemes Training, and we are joined back with our special guest, Rebecca Gill. Now, Rebecca is the president of Web Savvy Marketing. She has more than 20 years of experience in sales and marketing and SEO, and she's a self-taught expert. Now, Rebecca crafted her SEO skills as a marketer for enterprise software, where she actively competed and won against large corporations like SAP and Oracle and Microsoft. Now, today at Web Savvy Marketing, Rebecca's team provides WordPress web design and support, as well as SEO consulting services. And Rebecca also provides SEO education at DIYSEOcourses.com. Now, on a personal note, I'll add that if you're not already familiar with Rebecca, you're about to hear from one of the top experts in WordPress SEO, and she's an engaging and enjoyable presenter as well. So with all that said, Rebecca, we are thrilled that you're back with us. Welcome to iThemes Training.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I am pleased to be here once again. My first, webinar for iThemes in 2018. We did one per month last year in 2017, so we're a little bit new for the webinars this year. So just a quick question in the chat room. How many of you feel like you really can't learn SEO, or you're just struggling to pick up what you need to learn in it? We were just talking about imposter syndrome before we started. And so that is my quick question. I just want to get some feedback. So I got a floundering, find it hard to do everything, just don't know a good place to start, know the basics, but deep dive, not so much. Okay, and the reason I ask is, and I'm just going to start with this quick little story, is I was doing my first mastermind session for this current group that I have, and afterwards someone walked away and said, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I can learn SEO." And I looked at her homework afterwards, and it was complete imposter syndrome. And like I said, we were just talking about that. Not only was her homework that she had been assigned before coming to the mastermind, it was good, it was well done. There was no reason why she couldn't learn SEO, and already hadn't been learning it as she had been doing her homework. And we get ourselves into this thought process that we can't do it, that you have to be an expert, you have to have all this experience, or you have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for someone else to do it. And that's just incorrect. I'm a true believer in that virtually anybody can learn SEO. It's just a matter of whether you want to do it and whether you like SEO. And in my email back to this woman who had clear imposter syndrome, I said to her, I struggle with it myself. I have for a long time. And I'm not like brilliant. I am the kid who was in remedial reading in 5th grade. I barely passed 5th grade. I struggled with middle school and high school, and I didn't really get myself together until I got into college. And then I realized that kind of, things were possible within my grasp, but I got into the workforce, and I really realized then, when I discovered technology, that everything was in my grasp. And I eventually found my way to SEO 15 years ago. And like Nathan said, I am self-taught, and I spent a lot of time learning about it. And I want to start with this story because I just want to reinforce for my first webinar for iThemes this year that you can learn SEO, you can do well in SEO, and you can beat the big guys. Don't think that it's within your power, it's outside your power, because it is. And I'm a good case study of that. If the little poor kid with, in remedial reading can do this, pretty much so can anybody else. And I've taught a lot of people to do SEO, and I've had a lot of people have really good success with SEO. And now I've started to teach developers and other agencies how to do SEO for their clients. So keep that in mind. If there's something that you're not grasping today as we go through it, that's okay. You will not pick up every single nuance the first time around. It takes, like anything else in the world, some repetition to get all of the pieces and parts. So just think about that as we're moving along today. And keep that in mind. If you have questions, please throw them into the chat room. We will answer them at the end of the webinar. I always try to leave time for that. And if we have to run over for it, that's okay too. I want to make sure that I can answer your questions to the best of my abilities, and that you don't go away with any confusion or anything else. So with that, we will go ahead and start jumping in.
And if I could just jump in for a second here, Rebecca, lots of folks have joined after we started the webinar. And let me just remind you that if you have not joined the chat room, it is located at iThemes.com/chat. We don't use the questions feature or the chat feature of GoToWebinar to field questions. Put those there in the chat room, iThemes.com/chat. It's helpful to me if you preface your question with the word question in all uppercase, and I'll pull those questions out of the chat and we'll have those for Rebecca at the end of today's webinar. Awesome. Well, Rebecca, let's get into WooCommerce SEO.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so WooCommerce SEO as well as e-commerce SEO is very similar to regular SEO. The difference is you have additional moving parts. So when we think about SEO like in a standard WordPress install, we've got pages and posts and maybe some custom post types. Maybe we have categories that we're targeting in the blog post, but now you bring in WooCommerce, which is, a WordPress plugin. Now we've got products and we've got a store page and we've got product categories and potentially product tags. And we have things that are coming in and out of stock. So this is something to think about, as you're looking at this. If, I teach SEO, I teach the process of SEO, right? WooCommerce is going to follow this same process. You're just going to have more elements to work with and more things to consider. So I want to go through, each slide that I'm going to go through is going to have an area of consideration, common problems, some best practices, and then if there's tools I can suggest that you use, I'm going to suggest some tools to you. So first and foremost, when I look at any SEO process, we start with a few things. We start with asking questions, the who, the why, the what of you, basically who you are, what do you do, what do you offer? And in this case, what do you offer would be those things that you're selling through WooCommerce. Then we also ask ourselves, who do you serve? Who is coming to buy those products or those items that you are selling within your WooCommerce application? And then you try to ask yourself, how do those connect? Right? And we're asking how those connect because those connection points is what leads to the keyword research. And before we go off with the keyword research and really dive into it, we also want to consider who our competition is. What do they have that is successful for them currently? Where do they lack? What can we learn from them? And these are the things that we really want to think through when we are, setting up our store, or we're, going to do a refresh to the store and our SEO of that store. That's the heart of SEO, is starting with that research and that investigation and applying the data and the knowledge that you learn there to your keyword research and then mapping that through your store. So that's why I start with this as the very first piece of information to talk about. And again, this is just like the regular process we would go through for a standard traditional website. The difference is we've just got more things to consider. So what are some of the common problems that I find when I look at what people have with keyword research in stores? Well, first and foremost, they throw the site up and there are no keywords at all, right? They haven't thought through what potential searches their buyers might do to find their offering, their products, or even services that you might be selling through that store. That's the first thing. And that happens a lot because we're so focused on just getting that store up and the payment gateways and the sales tax and all of those little nuances that go into it. We forget about the keywords, and that's a problem. Another common problem is if there are keywords, they're haphazardly picked, right? They're just grabbed and there's not a lot of research done, or they're very broad. In today's world, broad keywords like broccoli or shoes do not translate well. And the reason they don't translate and they don't perform well is people don't search like that anymore. We have voice search. We have people like my daughter who's 18, who's grown up with technology. She buys everything online and she can type super fast and she speaks into her phone. Her searches are very long. So you have to think about that kind of information as you're setting up your strategy for your store. The other issue is that people will tend to pick the keyword phrases that they're familiar with and not necessarily what their actual buyers will use for search. I have done SEO for 15 years and I have never been I'm not surprised by keyword research and what the general public uses in the search box to find products and services. Sometimes it scares me, sometimes it's comical. And if you've not done keyword research for different industries, you're missing out, because there's a lot of humor there waiting for you. But I mean, this is the heart, and that's why I'm spending time on it. So what is the best practice? Well, ideally, let's assume you're launching a brand new store. Before you launch that brand new store, you're thinking about keywords and search and how that's going to relate to what you might want to put into the store. If you're thinking about new products, you're thinking about it at that time too. I used to own the largest Genesis stock theme store outside of the Studio Press firm itself. I had, I think at one time, like 36 stock themes. And before we would ever even consider developing a new template for the websites, we would do keyword research. I would think through what was my potential buyer, who uses those templates. The answer to that was the people that buy themes like that are people that have more time than money, right? It could be a chiropractor in a single office in the middle of nowhere in the US who doesn't have clients all the time. And so he can actually work on his own website and go buy a theme and do it himself because he has more time available than he has money to allocate to it. And I would do that research before we would ever go into development or design or anything else. And it was that research and that initial thought process that really helped make that store successful. I mean, without question, that is why I brought in a lot of revenue. And that is why I loved that store for a really long time. When you're doing keyword research, don't just pick a few, think long lists, create a seed list, right? Just keep throwing, how like you used to be in school and they used to make you brainstorm things? Do that. I used to keep notes in my phone on my notes that would also sync over to my Mac. So every time I thought of something, like a potential phrase, I just would throw it in that list and I would collect it for weeks. And then once I had a lot of ideas, I would go pull search volumes to see what really translates in search. I know what I think people should search for, but it may not be what they actually do. And when you go and you start looking at actual search volumes, that's powerful information because it helps validate whether or not people actually search for things the way that you think they search for. And then once you're done with that, you want to rank those keywords for relevance. So for a given phrase, how relevant is that to your actual product and to the people that are coming into the store that will potentially purchase from you? That is a process. That is not a day process. That's like a couple of weeks, because you really do need to get some research involved, some thinking, and then mapping that to the individual pieces and parts of your store. So what are some tools you can use for that? Amazon auto suggest. Start typing something into Amazon, see what pops up. Google related searches. One of my favorites, KW Finder, SEMrush, and SpyFu. If you have never been on a webinar before with me, let me pull some of these up real quick. This is SEMrush. I've gone in and I've used UGG boots because I have this in the presentation. I can literally go in and put in the UGG website and see everything that they rank for. I can not only see what they rank for, I see what position they are and what URL is actually ranking. What does this do for me? Well, if I wanted to sell UGG boots or something like that, I can understand what is working for them. I can do the same thing for the distributors or anybody else, and I can use these to help me brainstorm. Which, who knew that people looked for duck boots? I don't even know what duck boots are, but apparently people look for them, and this website is ranking for them. So that's one thing, or one tool I use. I love KW Finder as well. I can put in any search phrase, and it will give me all variations that are exported from Google's tool. I see some really good search volumes. I see keyword difficulty. So how hard would it be to try to rank on that? Then on the right side, I can see who's actually ranking on page 1 and some metrics about them. Super powerful. I can produce lists. I can export those lists with all this information. And it really helps in that keyword process and brainstorming and then validating whether or not the searches support what you think could be the case. Then I also mentioned just coming into Amazon and start typing. See what starts to pop up, because this will also help you brainstorm potential keyword phrases and or variations. And all of this process is really important before you dive in and start actually trying to optimize. And that is one common problem, is that people just load a plugin and try to optimize without having that research. And that research is really critical for success. Okay, so once you have your potential keywords and you know what you want to rank for, now you have to relate that back to individual pieces and parts of your website. And I said at the very beginning that this may be, in a traditional website, pages and posts. But now we also have products. And you might be writing promotional posts about your products. How does that all fit together? Well, you need to have a plan. You have to have structure, and you have to have a really good roadmap for you. Because if you don't have a roadmap for what is the best URL for a given search phrase, Google won't know what that is either. And if Google doesn't know, they won't provide you in search results. So you have to keep yourself on task and focused so you know exactly what types of phrases relate to the individual URLs on your site so that you can make sure that you're consistent in their usage. What are some common problems? It's the lack of structure and planning. Again, people just jump in. Another one is primary keywords are assigned to products. Products are really hard to rank because they come in and out of stock. And it just, in an e-commerce environment, it is really hard to rank them. Instead, you can think about categories, right? So like, for example, with the UGG boots, I might have in my store 50 different products for UGG boots, whether they have bows or they're men or they're women or they're pink or they're blue or high or low. But what if I want to rank all of those for UGG boots? Well, I can't. Google's not going to give results for all of those products. However, if I had a category for UGG boots or a category for men's boots, that's different, because now I have a central destination, a central place that I can always link to, and I can always send people, and I can really focus on for that specific phrase. And these are the things that you have to really think through. And my last common problem is what I just mentioned. People use the same keyword phrase over and over and over on lots of different URLs, and there is no focus. Keywords aren't a snowball. You don't just throw it at your website and see what sticks. You have to actually have a plan, and that plan has to be defined and followed. So what are the best practices here? Well, you assign the highest priority keywords to your categories. Optimize those categories and use them for the power that they have. Create topical areas like seasonal or clearance. Extend the usage of that with good content and link posts. Product comparisons and buyer guides will not only bring bring traffic into your site, it will also allow you the opportunity to link over and nurture those destination pages, those categories, and those products that you want to have that internal links support. Because internal links are superheroes in SEO, and nobody pays attention to them. They are so powerful because you are giving indicators to the search engines on what content's important. So you really need to make sure that you're thinking through that as you set up your sitemap and as you plan your keywords that you want to utilize. And then the last one is when you're setting up and you're thinking about where you want your keywords to be assigned, make sure they're not embedded deep within the website. If you look at what's on page 1 of Google search results, it's shorter URLs. It's things that are at the first or second level. It's certainly not 4th, 5th, and 6th. And that is a problem with e-commerce sites. They create all these different types of search combinations and funkiness. And the older the software I have to optimize, the worse it seems like it is. And I've literally had e-commerce clients where we went to go optimize their content, and the way that it was architectured, it's 7 layers deep. The URL is like going from California to New York in the country of the US. It is so long, it's not usable by humans, and it's not usable by search engines because it's really hard for them to crawl, and it's beyond ugly. We can't rank things like that. Instead, we had to create actual pages and rank those pages and have those pages link over to the products, which is craziness, but that was the limitation that we had. So you have to think through that kind of thing. Again, some helpful tools, SEMrush. Dino Mapper is a wonderful tool in Screaming Frog because it will actually go through both of those, crawl your website and give you a complete URL list with a bunch of data. and it helps you see your website as a search engine does. And when you start to see this list, you'll see things completely different than you would before. So when we were talking about site mapping, and I said, think about categories and things like that as opposed to individual products. When I did a search for UGG boots, this is like the kind of results that would show up on page 1 of Google. And you'll notice they're not actually products. They are actually categories. Like 6pm.com, it's their category for Uggs. Zappos, it's the category for Uggs. And again, it's because that has power. They really do have a lot more power in search. So coming back to that comment of having your URLs be shorter, that's another consideration, right? Try to keep out those convoluted URLs with a bunch of funky characters and that type of thing, because it is really, really hard for the search engines to crawl those URLs, digest your content, and then index it. You need to make sure that those are short, not too short, but short, and that they're very easy to use. If you change URLs, make sure that you use the 301 redirect. That 301 redirect will transfer all of your SEO value, transfer that referring traffic, and keep your site healthy. A lot of times people don't realize that, and they just start making changes to live URLs. And when you do that, you kill off all of your existing SEO. Watch for duplicate content. This is something else. So that site I talked about before that had like those 7, 8 levels, they had a ton of duplicate content. And that tends to happen with older software or, the searches and things like that. Where does it come from? It's the lack of canonical links and URLs, the session IDs, and then it's the multiple categories creating multiple paths with that product in it. And again, it's all duplicate content, and it makes it really hard for the search engines to figure out what the heck's going on. Because here's the thing, if they see the same product in multiple URLs and it's just duplicated, they don't know which one to pick. They don't know which one's the primary. And when that's the case, again, they're just going to ignore you because it's too hard. They don't want to have to think. They want you to think for them and have a really clean site and have a well plan for them. Okay, so next let's talk about product descriptions. This is an area where people come to me and say, you know what, Rebecca, my store's just not ranking like it should. I don't know what's going on. And I go to look at their actual products and the things that they want to rank for. It's either like non-existent, there's like nothing there, or it's the manufacturer description that is still available on 500 other sites at least floating around the internet. Well, if Google comes and sees you have this product, it's the manufacturer description, it sees the same information on 500 different websites that were there before you, why would it want to rank you? It doesn't want to rank you. It has no purpose to rank you, no desire to rank you, because you're not providing value. And you need to think through that. Like, what can you put in your products and your categories that truly provide value that helps showcase your products over somebody else's? And that's true whether they're unique products or they are products that you're reselling that come from a manufacturer that has lots of different reps. A great way to figure out how much you need is to go look at competitor websites. Who is ranking on page 1? What type of descriptions do they have for their products? What do they have in their category pages? Really, what's there? And in today's world, we think less about keyword density. We think more about semantic search. Semantic search meaning you're giving the search engines additional signals to help them figure out what that content is about. A classic example is if I search for Apple, Google won't know whether I want to have results for the Apple I eat or Apple, the company that manufactures my laptop and my phone and my iPad. Now, once I start adding words to that search, Google can figure that out better. But now Google has to relate that to content. On all the content it sees on the web that has the phrase Apple in it. What is it going to do? It is going to look at that content for other phrases that will help them figure it out. That's the semantic part. So for Apple I eat, it would look for content that has fresh, taste, color, things like that. As if it's the Apple, the company, it would look for things like stockholders, founders, things of that nature. And if it was Apple products, it might be monitor, keyword, and words such as that. But all of those things that you're providing in those descriptions in your content help Google figure out the nature of your content and who it's a fit for. When you have really limited product descriptions and limited information in your site, Google can't do that, and it needs that greater level of content to be able to work through the semantics of your content and match it up with the user intent. Okay, category pages also need descriptions. I said that those are great ways to rank your products, but you can't just have products with a bunch of product names and then maybe pictures that may or may not have any descriptions on them, because that's not enough meat for the search engines to use. They need to have some descriptions, and they need to be optimized. Categories, whether it's a blog post category or it's a product category, can absolutely rank in search, and they can rank well, but you have to help the search engines figure out what that category is about. And so, you know, if you're on here right now and you've got your store up in front of you, look at one of your category pages. Is it just a list of products with titles and images and pretty much nothing else? If that's the case, then that's an issue. And WooCommerce does support you being able to have descriptions and intro text to your categories to really help the search engines understand the semantics of that URL. Okay, so manufacturer part numbers can be very, very problematic. They can be missing, they can be incomplete, they can be distorted. People search for manufacturer part numbers at certain phases during the buying process. For me, because I do search for a living, if I find something that I'm interested in and it's expensive, I will figure out what I want, then I will find the manufacturer part number, and then I will use that to find people who also sell it to decide which one beats or meets my best criteria, whether it be delivery time, price, free shipping, things like that. But I do use that, and so do the search engines. So when you're using that manufacturer part number, consider where you're putting it. These are places that it might be good to put it. You don't have to put it in all of them, but just things that I do definitely want you to think about, because it will help help you to potentially rank for those manufacturer part numbers. People do search for that. I'm not the only one. I am crazy in many ways, but in this way, I'm not crazy. Other people besides me actually do it too. Okay, so meta titles and descriptions, there's a lot of mixed information on whether or not that these should, you have to spend any time doing this. Well, I say yes, and here's what and it is really yes. They should be created by you. They should be thoughtful, and you should really think about what you want to show here. And it's not just for SEO, it's also for click-through rates on the search engine results page. This is the first thing people see about your site before they ever decide to click through. It's your opportunity to put your website out in front of somebody and entice them to click on your listing instead of somebody else's and bring them in. I used Yoast SEO because I love that, and I have for a really long time. And it helps me create better descriptions. This should be done for products and categories alike. Make sure you're doing it in both. If your store offers things like free shipping, think about putting that in there so people see that, because people like me who expect free shipping will see that in those meta titles and descriptions and be like, oh, I see a full list of products on here. They all meet my requirements. But this guy or gal, they've got free shipping. I'm going to go check them out first because I'm cheap and I'm not going to pay for free shipping. So think about those kind of things as you're writing them. They influence click-through rates. Click-through rates indirectly influence SEO. So they do matter to SEO, and they are something that you should be giving love to. And here are some helpful tools that you can use to really figure out what would be those meta titles and descriptions. Google Search Console will tell you issues that you have with your existing ones, whether they've been missing or duplicate or too long, things like that. The Moz bar will help you see what the meta descriptions and titles are for your competitors. You can install it into Chrome, go to anybody's URL, click on the little button, and it will show you what they've got. Love that for some competitive information. Dino Mapper and Screaming Frog can give you an export for your whole website. And then the first two, Yoast and All-in-One SEO, can both help you create those inside of WordPress and optimize them. So like I was saying earlier, when you scan these on the search engine results page, they can make a difference. You kind of look at these and say, are they all the same? Are they different? Well, Sometimes they are all exactly the same. They don't really provide any value whatsoever, and it's really hard to tell them one thing from another. Other times something stands out and like they grab your attention. So that's why we have to pay so much attention to these. We really do want them to grab people's attention, and we don't want it to just be a bunch of duplicates. And because think of it this way, so when we have a bunch of duplicates, which is why Google tells us that this is an issue, it makes Google think really hard about the difference between one versus another. And we don't want that to happen. We want Google to understand that this specific URL right here is about weather boots, right? These ones are more casual. We could have, high fashion and trends and things like that, or fancy. I don't know. There's so many different terms you could have, but I'm just trying to give you examples to think through your URLs and your descriptions and your titles. So you're making it very easy on the search engines to figure out one URL versus another, and you're enticing people to click through onto your, from the search engine results page to your site. So breadcrumbs are like internal links. People don't even realize that they matter, but they are very helpful to both humans, and search engines love them. They can even have some structured data associated with them, which will help search engines better understand them. They keep people on the site. They help everybody understand better the hierarchy of the site and where things are located at. But here's the common problem. 23% don't have them at all, and 68% have subpar implementations of them. You need to make sure that this is spot on, and make sure that it is helping Google and your visitors better understand your content, what you have to offer up in your store, and so that they can better utilize that and increase your revenue. Link building. Have you noticed I've been mentioning link building a lot? And it's because it is so powerful. It's like, the joke, what is it, the redheaded stepchild that nobody pays attention to. That is link building. That is link building. No one pays attention to it. Everybody forgets it. Or if they start to do it, they do it incorrectly. Every time you create an internal link inside your site, you are giving the search engines triggers and data points to figure out what that destination content's about. So for example, if I have a lot of links on my internal links on my site going over to UGG boots, Google might think that that is important because there's a lot of links there. Now compare that, and I have, let's say, 2,000 links inside my site going to an UGG boots page. Now I have, compare that to 50 internal links I have going over to another shoe manufacturer, and for the life of me, I can't think of anybody. What is it, like Red Wing or somebody else? So if you have those diverse sets of numbers, which one is Google going to think that's most important? The Red Wing boots or shoes, or the UGG boots? It's the one that has the most links, because the search engines use that. And they don't just use the number of links, they use the verbiage that you are populating with that link, that text. And that text and that link into a specific URL should match the focus keyword phrase of that URL, because it helps the search engines understand what that's about. When you have, and this goes for regular websites too, so say I have a destination URL about purple shoes. And when I'm linking into there, most of the time I'm saying purple shoes. But now someone new comes into my company and they're not really paying attention. They all of a sudden start linking into the same URL, and they're using pink boots for all of the links. What does that do to the search engines? It confuses them, because they had a consistency before where it was purple, and so that they understood that that destination content was about purple, because those links are important. Now, when you bring in this other element that conflicts with that and contradicts it, they don't know what to believe. So you do, again, have to have that plan. I started out with that keyword research and mapping keywords to content. You're using that research and that plan and that roadmap here when you're doing link building within the site. And it is important. So you need to make sure that you have a structure and a plan for this, and you're continuing to do this, time and time again. I love the tools like SEMrush, because it can help highlight broken links that you have inside your site. I'm trying to think. There's the new Yoast SEO plugin also can help you with internal linking, so you can see links coming in and out of content. And that's why that software is doing that for you. You probably saw that get introduced as a feature and be like, what the heck are they doing that for? Well, they were doing it because it actually makes a difference, right? They know, the Yoast team knows that this influences search and your ranking, and they want to make sure you're paying attention to it. So this actually image is from Google. It is from Google documentation, and it's basically showing you that when you have verbiage here from various places of your website and they all go to that baseball card product page, what you're telling both the user and the Google bot that crawls your website is, hey guys, this is what this page is about. It's about baseball cards, because I'm telling you every single time I link into it. And it's just, I wanted to give you a visual because it is so important, and consistency is important. So again, have a plan. All right, so another thing I want you to think about is the love that you send when you're doing linking inside your site. This, by the way, is the same when you're linking outside of your site. So if I have one blog post and it links to 5 different products on my site, I am giving power to those products because I'm sending them love with the link. And I transfer 20% of that love to each one of those links, because my power that I can give and the love that I can give is divided by the number of links. And so think about it this way, it's 20%. Now let's assume I get rid of this guy, and this guy, and I'm only down to these 2. So my blog post only links to 2 products. What happens there? Each product is going to get 50% because I've gotten rid of the other ones. So now think about this. You have a blog post and this green guy right here is inside your site, but these 4 little ladies, they're offside your site. They're in somebody else's store, and your blog post links to all of them. What have you just done? Well, you could have given your product 100% of the love. Instead, he's back down to 20% because all of these ladies right here, they grab 20% and they're taking away that love from your product. So should you only link to yourself? No. You should, give link love to other people too, because it will come back your way. However, think about how much you're putting in there, because the more you link, the more you dilute the value of those links. Okay, so social media is important for SEO. There are indirect and direct ranking factors with SEO. This one is indirect. Google says social media is not a core part of the algorithm. However, as SEO consultants and as marketers, we know it makes a difference. And the reason we know it makes a difference is because it influences what happens. So I can tell you firsthand that when I had my theme store, if I were to release a product and I immediately had that product shared on social media and discussions started happening about that product, and there was activity and likes and groups were talking about it, and people were retweeting it and going, good job, and way to go, Rebecca, and things like that, guess what happened? My product, my theme, would rank on page 1 of Google within about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, I would also create a blog post, and that blog post would link in, and that would get some activity and some exposure and things like that. But all of that online activity and that interest and all of that just kind of love and discussion going on about my new theme showed Google that somebody other than my mom or my dog cared about the theme that I just released, right? Somebody outside of Rebecca's little ecosystem cared about it, and it should care about it too. What else would happen is people would start linking into it from other sites. Those inbound links, those backlinks, still really important to the world of SEO. All of that activity would help my product rank really fast. Now, what happens if my head was in the sand, which happened on a couple of products? I forgot to do that, right? I didn't do it. Well, what happened was those products didn't rank, and it took me like 3-4 times as long to rank them. It's that initial boost once you release something that really helps boost up your SEO and makes the search engines take notice of it. So remember that when you've got things you want to rank. Facebook and YouTube dominate social media traffic and conversions on the web. Pinterest and Instagram, very popular with women, very popular with images, very popular with products and things. So they may or may not be your target market. My husband cannot figure out Pinterest, and he absolutely will not go on Instagram. So, he wouldn't be your target demographic for that. However, A lot of my mom friends love them both, and they'll use those social media sites. I find myself getting sucked up in an ad in Instagram 20 times more than I ever would on Facebook or YouTube. I don't know why that's the case. I don't know if it's because of the way they're presented or the type of ads, but I get sucked into those, and I have never gotten sucked into them on Facebook. So, think through those social media sites for both, getting the word out there, promoting them, really getting your products and what you offer in front of your community so that they can help give you those backlinks and that social activity and help you rank. Okay, today's world of search cannot exist without technical SEO. I just did 3 full-day summit on technical SEO. I just launched a course on technical SEO, and it's because it is so important. It used to scare the snot out of me. It can't scare the snot out of me anymore because I have to know it. I have to understand it to be able to rank and search. And it's really changed. So when we used to talk about, technical SEO, we would say, oh, well, it's, your XML sitemap and it's your robots file. Guess what? That ain't all of it is anymore. It's 301 redirects. It's your broken links and how your HTML sitemaps and it's structured data. It's the time on mobile, and it's JavaScript issues. It's all of that, right? We have to make sure that we are considering all of those and making sure our site is healthy. Because if we don't, and our site is poor performing, Google is going to struggle getting through it. Why would you validate your code? Why would you go to the W3, check your templates to make sure that they actually validate and there's not errors? Well, it's a very good, valid question. Why would you check your JavaScript? Because if Google goes to crawl your page and it hits a JavaScript error, it doesn't render the page. It stops. It can't continue to figure out what that content's about and digest it. So you really have to make sure that you're looking at your JavaScript to make sure it doesn't have errors, that you're validating code to make sure that Google can actually get through your templates, see your content for what it is, render it, understand it, digest it, and rank it. Another really important part of technical SEO these days is schema.org information and how that is applied through structured data. Now, I'm giving you an example right now of one of my courses and how it appears in search. How am I getting those stars up there and the price point and the fact that it's in stock? I'm getting it through a very simple plugin for WooCommerce, the Yoast SEO plugin. I just load it, I populate a few settings, and off it goes. People leave those reviews get pushed over to the search engines. Google fully understands that this is a product and that this product has reviews associated it, and it knows the price, and it knows all of that because the Yoast SEO plugin for WooCommerce is producing that structured data for the search engines. Now, structured data is important today, and it's going to continue to get important tomorrow. So if you have no idea what that is, you need to do some research on it. You cannot ignore it moving forward. It's kind of like mobile responsive and the mobile first indexing. They're SEO of tomorrow, right? So take note of that. One thing to note though, Google is persnickety about structured data because it has very little tolerance for poor implementations of it. So if you are going to go into structured data and you're going to start using it, use solid tools like Yoast to make sure that you're doing it right, and make sure that you're checking it so that there's the Google structured data testing tool. Because here's where you could fall down and you will get a very nasty note from Google and Google Search Console threatening you to take action. Here's an example. So you install Yoast, you're pushing this review data over to the search engines in structured data, but none of it's visible to the people that actually come to your website, those humans. Well, that's a violation of structured data implementation. Google specifically says if you are going to implement structured data, whatever that structured data is, it needs to be visible to the human. It needs to relate to that visible, content. And if you don't do that, now you're in violation, and it's not going to like it. So I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm telling you, don't just go jump in this. Don't go grab any plugin you see in the repository for WordPress. Make sure it comes from a reliable source. Make sure that source understands schema and how it is pushed out through structured data, and it understands what Google wants. Google's got lots of good information on this topic and how you can really implement it for your site. Okay, XML sitemaps. Here's the issue with these, right? These are not hard to generate in WordPress. Yoast creates it for us. It gives you complete control over it with its plugin. The problem is no one ever goes and checks it. It's either not generated, it's incomplete, or it's got errors, or you're pushing transactional data and weird stuff out to Google that you shouldn't even have in there. So not only do I want you to make sure you have an XML sitemap, and I want you to connect it to both Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools, I want you to actually go look and see what's there. And then I want you to go check those services to make sure that you don't have a bunch of errors. It's really important that you look at those and you see what's present. You don't need to push everything to the search engines. There's a lot of data on your website that should not be pushed out in XML sitemaps because you don't want Google to put it in the index. So look at that and really make sure that you're reviewing what's in it. It's what you want the search engines to index, and then it doesn't contain any errors. And Google, again, is pushing this information back to you through Search Console because it wants you to have a healthy website. Okay, we are in the land of mobile first indexing. That means not only do we know that more people search on mobile devices online than they do on desktop, Google is actually starting to index the mobile version of your website. So if your website is a dinosaur that has really poor mobile experience, or is a very stripped down version on mobile and it doesn't have hardly any content on mobile and it's all seen on desktop, you need to think through this because mobile first index is here and Google is using it as of, I think, like 2 weeks ago, right? And so, like I said, the mobile website has to be healthy. What do you need to be concerned about? What are common problems? Well, first of all, not having a mobile website, that is a problem, or a responsive theme that will adapt for mobile devices. Unexpected redirects between the mobile website and then the desktop version, that's a problem. Hidden or lack of information, huge now. That was kind of a concern before, but now it's big because Google has one index, and that index is going to be based on your mobile website. They're going to determine search based on mobile. So if your mobile website's product page, for example, has one sentence and your desktop has 1,000 words listed for the description, which one is Google using? It's not using the desktop anymore. It's using the mobile, and that's going to work against you. Common things also, the performance and how fast you can load your site, which can definitely be hampered by large images and user generated problems because you're just whipping whatever image you have up into WordPress and not actually making sure it's sized for your store's presentation within your theme. Okay, and by the way, these are just some tools. The Google Search Console mobile friendly tool, go look at that and test your website, but please know it is only testing that one individual URL. You need to go to Google Search Console. You need to look at the results for your mobile friendly inside Google Search Console because Google's telling you what errors you have present there. So if you don't do anything after this webinar besides that, that's what I would like you to do. Go into Google Search Console, look for the mobile information it presents you, and see if you have any errors or concerns from Google. And if you do, fix it because, again, Google's using mobile for that indexing. You have to make sure that you're healthy. And it's just easy. I did this for the UGG's website. You just dropped it in there to see the health of the website, and it will come back and say if it's mobile friendly. But again, this is just on the URL, not on the full site-wide information. Okay, speed and performance. Why is this so important? It seems like we're all nagging about it and talking about it and pushing you to go with higher end hosting like Liquid Web, which, by the way, is who I host with. The reason is because mobile is important. It is important to Google, and it's becoming more important to Google. Why does Google care about it? Well, Google has said multiple times that their user base their true user base is just now coming online. You and me and everybody else, we're not their future users. We're who they've had, but they're not the future. The future is those third world countries with really bad broadband. People don't have desktop computers. They've got mobile devices. They are on the internet while they're transferring from job to home and back and forth and things like that. They have crappy speed, for their plans. They have limited data. And because of all of that, that's why Google cares about speed and performance. It needs to service those people and service them well, so they'll come back to the Google search box and click on ads eventually and make revenue off of them. That is why Google's pushing us so much for speed and performance. You have to make sure that your site is fast, and not just for those people, but because we also know that conversions are definitely influenced by the speed and performance of your site. What are best practices? Here's Google's specific best practices right there that it's telling you it would like you to pay attention to. Straight from Google. Again, they've got a bunch of resource guides for this that you can have available to know really what matters. You can go and test your activity with Google Paid Speed Insights. It'll give you a good, very detailed report and tell you what is potentially wrong and what you need to work on. Okay, and this is just that report. You'll see that you have mobile and desktop. This is the mobile information. And then if you click on the desktop tab, you'll get the desktop information. And then below this right here is a bunch of information that you can expand and get even more information and see some specific tips that Google wants you to look at and consider for optimizing your site for performance. Okay, so those are all of the things that I wanted to go through today. We do have some time for questions. I don't know. I haven't been watching the chat box, so I'm not sure if there's a whole ton there. Nathan, do you want to let me know? Do we have a bunch of questions? If you're talking, Nathan, you are muted.
So, yes, there is a whole ton there. And I've got a great list for you here. So you ready to dive in?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, before we do that, though, I would like everybody to draw their attention over to the sidebar just to the right of the chat room there at iThemes.com/chat. And thereupon, you will find a lot of information about the SEO Summit with Rebecca coming up May 29th through June the 1st. 3 hours a day for, that's 29, 30, 35, yeah, 4 days. Had to count up there for a minute. 4 days of content, 3 hours a day, all about SEO. Rebecca, tell us a little bit about what's coming up there with SEO Summit.
So the summit is going to be similar to the one that we did before, which was multiple days of really in-depth information on doing research for keywords with competitors, figuring out what's relevant, mapping that into your content, optimizing content and things like that. But then I'm also refreshing all of that information for what's been happening in the last 2 years. So I think it was like 2 years ago that we did it. And a lot has changed with semantic search and keyword density and technical SEO. And those are all things that we need to consider and we need to make sure that we're covering. Because it is a different world today for SEO than it was before. The fundamentals are still the same. We still focus on the user experience, but things that we have to consider and things that we have to watch and really plan for and execute on have shifted a little bit, and we'll be covering that in the summit.
Awesome. So there's a special deal going on right now, a $50 off the regular $247 price point, so $197 using the coupon code that is that you'll find there on the page when you click that link, at iThemes.com/SEO-Summit. So if you haven't checked that out, please take a time to do that. Now let's dive into some questions here. We do have a bunch stacked up here for Rebecca. So back toward the beginning, when you're talking about keyword research, Stacy asked, if you've inherited a site that's been running for a while and pretty sure there was no keyword research originally, can you use the same process that you outlined when putting in keywords? What do you think?
Yes. Yeah. And so that is something like, so whether it's my online course or it's the summit that I do, that's something that we look at, because one of the exercises you have to do is you have to go and figure out where you're currently ranking with your URLs so that you don't kill that off, right? You want to look at the current state, and then you want to figure out what you'd like your future state to be, and then you've got to marry them together. And that's a process and something that you can't skip. So I do try to cover that, and like I said, on my online courses and then the summit, because you have to make sure that you are considering what's going on currently and blending that together with what you want to happen in search. Don't think that you can't optimize existing content. You absolutely can. You just need to make sure that you're going through the same process and considering those URLs in your plan.
Gotcha. All right. Another question regarding keywords. Paula would like to know, how do you determine focused keywords if you're selling to a broad demographic? So it might be a 25-year-old that's a customer, also a 65-year-old. What do you think about that?
You need to figure out what the verbiage is that they use, right? Because in some cases, it's going to be the exact same phrase or phrases. But in other cases, because I have an 18-year-old and I'm mid 40s, I know that me and my daughter use completely different verbiage for things, even to the point that she'll say, "Do you not know what that is?" And I'll be like, "No, I do not. We didn't use that term in the 70s. I'm not familiar with it." So what you can do is look at competitors, again, validate that with the search volumes, pull up those phrases, those various phrases in Google, see what's ranking on it, right? You'll see some indicators on whether it's Teen Magazine or it's the AARP magazine on which generation it might relate to. And then you need to create a strategy for that. And it might be the fact that your product itself doesn't have all of those keywords. Maybe you've got a supplemental blog post that has one of those generational keywords, and that blog post ranks and links over to the actual product for conversions.
Fantastic. And here's a question that we get occasionally. Andrea asks, when a popular search is a misspelling or grammatically incorrect version of your keyword, how do you optimize for that without looking stupid?
I love that you asked that, because I forget to cover that. Andrea, you don't, because here's why. Having grammatical errors and bad English on your site degrades you in the eyes of your human visitors, and it does with Google too. Google is not going to send people to a site full of grammatical and spelling errors. And oh, by the way, when you put a misspelled word into the Google search box, what does Google do? It's ignored you, and it says, which I love because I'm a horrible speller, it says, well, you searched for X, Y, and Z, but really I know you wanted A, B, and C, so I'm giving you results for A, B, and C because I know that's the right thing. Don't optimize for those misspellings. It will get you nowhere. It'll go against you in search.
Excellent. And I just did drop the link for today's slides there in the chat room at iThemes.com/chat. So if you want those, you can download those, grab those from SlideShare now. So a couple of questions on the WooCommerce category pages. Marco would like to know, would you point press release links to category pages or to specific products? What do you think about that?
It depends on what the keyword phrase is and where it's going to. What are you trying to rank? One caveat there, though, is Google does not like you using keywords, like keyword-rich phrases and linking those in press releases over to pages. I used to be able to do that 15 years ago when I worked at my software company. That was fine. Today, it is against Google's quality guidelines. So you can share the URL itself. That's it. Or it has the link, if it's using words, has to be no follow. But again, the answer to that is where your keywords lie and what is the plan for you with that roadmap. That's why keyword research and site mapping is so important. It creates the roadmap and it answers these questions for you.
Awesome. And a few people asked this question regarding category pages, and it was in relation to how much content to put on the category pages. How long should it be? Some people are, asking, how many keywords should you make them so long so that it requires scrolling? What do you think?
It's going to vary drastically by the industry, the type of product, the competition. The best way to answer that is to go and search for the keyword phrase on a clean browser with no history and no signed in accounts. See what shows up on page 1 currently. Then go look at that content, see what's there. Do they have long descriptions? Do they have a lot? Do they have a really fancy page that has descriptions and information at the top and at the bottom and products in the middle? See what's there and then use that information to help decide what you might need to compete.
Good deal. Okay, here's a good question from Julie. She'd like to know, when you're selling a bunch of different products where color is really the only differentiator, how would you avoid duplicate content?
So you can either have one product with the various colors as options, which is capable with WooCommerce, or you can use canonical links to give indications to the search engines which one is the primary product. Because canonical links don't redirect your visitors, they just tell the search engines who's the real deal. The real deal is the one who the canonical link points to.
Gotcha. And that's actually Julie's follow-up question, which is, how exactly do canonical links work?
That's how. So like when you've got your www versus non-www, one of those has a canonical link to the other, and it's telling the search engines who's the real deal. With the real URL, please stand up. And that's the indicators that it's giving.
That's great. Jay would like to know, does WooCommerce set canonicals for products that appear in multiple categories?
I do not know that. That would be for a more tech-heavy expert.
So maybe Patrick Rowland, who's in the chat today, knows that answer.
Maybe Patrick could drop that answer in the chat box for everybody.
For those of you, by the way, who are not familiar with Patrick, Patrick is our WooCommerce expert, and he's going to be doing a webinar tomorrow here on iThemes Training on WooCommerce and Gutenberg. So hopefully you'll join us back for that. Okay, Ben would like to know, what do you do to avoid duplicate content if you have a product that fits in two categories, like a unisex item in a clothing store?
So I'm pretty sure that I think the Yoast plugin helps address that. It might be the premium version, because you do have to address that, right? You don't want the product to exist in multiple categories with multiple URLs, because again, you'd have to have canonical links set up. But gosh, I swear that Yoast has some type of option in there, and because I have been working on my slides for the upcoming Yoast webinar, and I swear I saw it in there. So I do believe that it has an answer for you.
Gotcha. Okay, Melissa would like to know, I've had several people tell me to make my product descriptions bulleted and much shorter, otherwise people won't read them. So how do you balance that with Google's love for content?
So I love to tell people to have a mix of content, right? You want a nice sentence or two description that summarizes the product so Google can use that in the search results if it would like. But there's also people that love bullets, and people tend to read the first bullet and the last bullet and ignore the stuff in the middle, because people scan data. So you want to have a variety of content. So, and here's an example of the three different types of people. You have my old boss in my old world, who was a PhD in astrophysics. He could speed read. He never looked at bullets. He read the paragraphs because he could get through them so quickly. You have me, who's a multitasking mom who, runs a business. I'm a bullet girl. I scan those bullets, and I probably, jump to certain areas and ignore other ones. Then you have my husband, who he ain't going to read any of it. He's going to go straight to the video. So having different types of content, whether it be videos or images for like my husband, or bullets for me, and then paragraphs for my old boss, Scott, that will attract everybody and make sure that you're covering all of them. And the longer that you keep everybody on that product page, and the more that they convert, the happier you're going to be, and the happier Google's going to be, because they see that you're creating a positive user experience.
That's great advice. Okay, Marco would like to know, in your URL structure, would you leave products in the URL or take that out?
I don't like have a big desire to have it in there, because to me it becomes clutter and there's not a point. And I don't remember what we did with our theme store. I think I kept it very short, the URLs, and just kept like the keyword and some few things in there. Always remember that the shorter that you make your URLs, the easier they are for everyone to use. Keep keyword phrases in there and make sure they're unique, but try to keep them as short as possible.
Okay. Here's a good one from Ron. Would you recommend, again, with structuring the site, would you put the shop in a subdomain, or, your name, .com/shop?
So from a URL standpoint, the website as a whole, when content is in a folder, right, it has much more strength for the URL than if it's in a subdomain, because the subdomain kind of gets sent off to itself. It's like you went and put them in the guest house, right? Still your property, but you just went and stuck them in the guest house. So, think about that. Whether it's your blog or your store, it's always best, if you can, for everybody to have that inside a folder and inside the main URL, not on a subdomain. But there are cases where things do get stuck in subdomains because you have to. And if that's the case, you're just going to have to do it. It just will weaken your SEO some, and it will make reporting a lot more difficult.
Because Google sees a subdomain as a separate site, correct?
It knows it's part of the main URL, but again, it's like the guest house. It's not fully attached.
Interesting. Okay, a couple of questions on breadcrumbs. Mel would like to know, if I only have a few products, do I really need the breadcrumb links?
Nope.
Great. Jay would like to know.
It's as simple as that. There's not really much point. So, and if you don't have any structure to your site either, no content silo, no hierarchy, then no, breadcrumbs aren't going to help you either.
Not going to help you at all. Okay, Jay would like to, his question is, he says he's found Yoast breadcrumbs can conflict with WooCommerce breadcrumbs. Do you have a preference one for the other?
Okay, I don't, but I will tell you, I believe that the Yoast WooCommerce SEO plugin helps support that and helps that. So not just regular Yoast, but Yoast for WooCommerce. I'm pretty sure, again, I read something that will help resolve some of those issues, and it'll help manage the breadcrumbs better.
Gotcha.
And again, I would tell you, remember, WooCommerce's strength is the store. Yoast and the Yoast team, their strength is SEO. So when you're kind of looking at them, you think about who's got the knowledge for the different areas. Yoast isn't going to tell you, and the Yoast team's not going to tell you how to, all of the best practices for your store. They're going to focus you on SEO. So you have to look at those different resources for their different talents. It's why I always encourage people to have a plugin for their SEO settings and not a theme, because the theme developer, not an SEO expert. You have to use those people where they're best.
That is such great advice. I mean, look, if you guys don't walk away from anything else out of this webinar, that is it. Let each expert do what each expert does, right?
Yes.
Really good stuff. Okay, I have 5 more questions here. Marco would like to know, what is the best practice for using keywords on internal links? So, for example, do you make the link contain the keyword, or is click here for more information good enough? What do you think about that?
No, 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 no. Click here is bad. What does click here tell anybody? Nothing. It doesn't tell the search engines where they're going. It doesn't tell a screen reader where they're going. It just leaves us all flat. You want to use the keyword phrase so people understand what that link is and where it's taking them to. That's what helps your user experience, and that's what helps SEO.
And would, just to follow up with a question that just popped in the chat, would learn more fall into that same category?
Yes, sir.
Click here, learn more, read more, all those things. All right. Vicky would like to know, when it comes to internal linking and link juice, does your main navigation count toward the link juice?
So those are links, and like the main navigation and footer links can definitely help with SEO, and that's because you're giving the search engines a way to get to that content often, right? You're allowing them to crawl. However, it doesn't have as much power as an in-content link.
Gotcha. Okay, Ron would like to know, could you address issues in SEO in branded products versus generic items? For example, someone searching for Uggs versus fuzzy warm boots.
I'm not quite sure. Read that question again, because I'm not sure what the intent of it was.
I think the question is, how do you get people who are using a fuzzy search? Like, instead of I'm searching for Uggs boots, I'm searching for warm fuzzy boots. So it's more of a fuzzy search versus a specific brand.
So if I was trying to target warm fuzzy boots, if there wasn't a lot of competition, I would make sure it is within my descriptions and it's very, it's well used to help describe the product. Or if it was competitive, I'd make sure that I wrote a blog post about the best warm fuzzy boots for Michigan weather. And I would target it that way.
Gotcha. Okay, last one. Mel would like to know, are there any suggestions for a good structured data plugin?
So for your store and for your WooCommerce store, I would definitely encourage you to use the Yoast extension. It has another extension for local like stores and things like that. But for the rest of them on the site, it is going to depend on what the schema is that you're using. There is no plugin that handles all structured data, right? It's specific to the schema that you're trying to deploy on your site. And there's not plugins for all types of schema because there are so many different types of schema data points. So again, it's really specific to the actual data that you have. However, if it's WooCommerce, I would use the Yoast plugin.
Okay, and does Yoast have a schema set up within it?
There are a few fields, but it doesn't freak you out if that's what you're asking. It's pretty easy to do, and then Yoast handles the rest because, again, schema is very structured, right? The search engines expect specific fields to be pushed over to them for products, and that plugin's allowing you to do it. Same thing with like the Yoast plugin for local SEO. It expects things like your address, your hours of operation, and things like that, and the plugin is helping you generate that data.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we've reached the end of the questions here. Rebecca, thanks for a fantastic webinar today. Lots and lots of great information. Folks, I hope you've gotten some good takeaways for today as you're starting to optimize your WooCommerce site. As we're starting to wrap up here today, Rebecca, any last words or last thoughts for the folks?
If you are not part of my SEO Launchpad group on Facebook and you would like to join, we'd love to have you. There are people that are in this chat room that are in it that even help answer questions because they're smarter than me on certain areas. And then I go in at least once a day and answer everybody's questions as well. So please join us if you'd like to. And if the summit's a good solution for you, I hope to see you there as well.
Yeah, awesome. So we just dropped in the link to the Facebook group there in the chat. It's facebook.com/groups/SEO Launchpad. So yeah, Evelyn is saying this is one of the best training sessions she's ever sat through. So Evelyn, thanks for that.
Thanks so much, Evelyn. I love to hear the positive feedback.
I told you guys at the beginning you were in for a treat. So Rebecca, we are just so glad that you've come back with us here and we've gotten a great session today. We do have that SEO Summit coming up at the end of next month. May 29th through June the 1st, there's a special $50 off limited time coupon going on right now. Regular price $247, on sale for $197. Let me drop once again the informational page about that event there in the chat. So if that's a good fit for you, as Rebecca said, if you want to learn more about SEO, this is going to be a deep dive, 4 days, 3 hours a day into all things SEO. Now, we did have a question come across earlier about folks that are in time zones that it would be prohibitive to join us live. And absolutely, if you purchase the ticket for the event, anyone who purchases that ticket will have access to the replays and all the material that's given out throughout the summit. So even if you're in Australia, as our friend was that mentioned in the chat room, and that's like 4 a.m., we understand that's a little rough. You can certainly purchase that event and then just have access to the replays forever. So that's also a good value as well. So thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with us for the last about an hour and 15 minutes now. And thanks again to you, Rebecca, as we wrap things up today. So we do have that webinar with Patrick. If you're interested in WooCommerce, we dropped that link in earlier. WooCommerce and Gutenberg coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central with Patrick Rawlin. Join us for that. That's a free webinar as well. So thanks again for being with us today. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next time here on iThemes Training, where we go further together.